Picture this. You're in the Starbucks drive-thru. One hand on the steering wheel, the other doing that little tap-tap on your phone while the barista cheerfully says, "That'll be $7.84. You don't even flinch. You just pay. It's basically muscle memory now. And then, 10 minutes later, you're sitting at a red light thinking, wait, why do I feel broke all the time? Congratulations, you've just met one of the weirdest modern experiences. Earning more money and somehow feeling poorer. Because on paper, you're doing fine, maybe even better than you've ever done. And yet your brain is acting like you're one surprise expense away from living off motivational quotes and peanut butter. Everyone around you looks like they're leveling up, new place, new car, promotion energy, while you're staring at your own life like it's missing a piece you can't name. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your brain can make a bigger paycheck feel like a smaller life, and what to do about it without turning into a spreadsheet monk. And here's the mini payoff right away. Feeling broke is often less about your income and more about your expectations, your attention, and the invisible commitments you've already made. This is the psychology of feeling broke while earning more. Because broke isn't only a bank balance, it's a sensation, it's a vibe. It's your brain running a constant background app that whispers, not enough, not safe, not stable, even when the numbers technically say you should be okay. Let me show you how that app gets installed. Imagine you get a raise. Not a tiny one either, like a real adult raise, the kind where you text your best friend, "Okay, we're kind of thriving." You feel lighter for about 3 days, and then something subtle happens. Your life expands into the new space, like a plant that immediately grows into a bigger pot. You upgrade one or two things because it makes sense. You start ordering the good groceries instead of the fine groceries. Your Amazon deliveries show up more often, and you stop bracing yourself before clicking place order. Then, your rent renewal hits, and suddenly the landlord's email feels like it was written in all caps. This is lifestyle creep, but I want you to think of it less like a moral failure and more like physics. When resources increase, your baseline adjusts. Your brain recalibrates what normal looks like. And once something becomes normal, it stops feeling like a luxury and starts feeling like a requirement. That's not you being weak, that's you being human. If your raise only lasted 3 days emotionally, you're not ungrateful. You're running an outdated safety algorithm. Your brain is a prediction machine. It learns your environment and builds a model of what you need to survive it. When your environment gets nicer, your brain updates the model. New normal, new minimum. So the raise doesn't feel like extra, it feels like, finally, the correct amount to keep the machine running. And the moment it becomes the correct amount, any threat to it feels like danger. Now let's make it even more real. You've got more income, but you also have more fixed costs. Maybe you moved into a slightly better place because you were tired of the neighbor's bass shaking your wall at 2 a.m. Maybe you upgraded your car because your old one had that ominous check engine light that basically lived there. Maybe you finally got health insurance that doesn't feel like it was designed as a prank. Those choices are not frivolous, they're rational. But fixed costs do something psychological. They shrink your sense of freedom. Variable spending feels like you have control. You can skip the fancy coffee, you can cook at home, you can cancel a subscription. Fixed costs feel like gravity. They're there every month, no matter how motivated you are. And your brain cares about flexibility more than it cares about totals. Flexibility is safety. So even if you make more, if the money is already spoken for, your brain reads it as not mine. It doesn't feel like abundance, it feels like obligation. That's why you can have a decent salary and still feel like you're walking around with an invisible ankle monitor labeled autopay. Now add the second ingredient. Your attention is being hijacked by the loudest numbers, not the most meaningful ones. Think about the last time you opened your banking app. You probably didn't admire your long-term progress like a proud financial historian. You looked for the number that could hurt you. The checking balance, the credit card payment due, the rent number, the minimum due number that somehow feels like a personal insult.
Banks have really mastered the art of making a screen feel like a judgmental parent. Your brain is wired for salience. It pays attention to what pops, what threatens, what changes. That means your financial anxiety will cling to bills, due dates, and surprise expenses, because those are vivid. Meanwhile, the boring good stuff, like gradually increasing savings or paying down debt, moves slowly and quietly, like a turtle in socks, not very attention-grabbing. So your emotional reality gets shaped by the loudest signals, not the truest ones. And this is where a lot of people get trapped. They think, if I feel broke, I must be doing something wrong. But often, feeling broke is just your nervous system reacting to uncertainty, especially if you grew up around financial stress or if your income has ever felt unstable. Your brain remembers. It stores that pattern, and once it learns that money can disappear, it stays vigilant even when money is present. It's not trying to ruin your life, it's trying to prevent a repeat of an old pain. Okay, quick moment. If this kind of plain English pop psychology is your thing, the stuff that makes you go, oh, that's what my brain is doing, stick around. All right, back to it. Now let's talk about the sneakiest mechanism of all, social comparison. Because you're not just living your financial life, you're watching other people's highlight reels while you do it.
You can be doing objectively well, and then you open Instagram and see someone your age in a spotless kitchen holding a matcha latte like it's a personality trait. Or you're on LinkedIn and someone announces, "Thrilled to share I've accepted a new role," and their headshot looks like it was taken by a team of professionals who also do lighting for Marvel movies. Your brain doesn't just see that and move on. It updates your internal scoreboard. Here's the problem. The scoreboard has no finish line. There will always be someone making more, traveling more, renovating more, buying more. And your brain treats that as relevant information because humans evolved in small tribes where comparison helped you track your status and safety. Today, your tribe is everyone with Wi-Fi. So your reference point keeps inflating. This is why making more can actually increase the feeling of being behind. As you earn more, you often move closer to circles where normal is more expensive. You start hearing phrases like, "We're thinking about buying," and they mean a house, not a new lamp. You start getting invited to group trips where the cost is described as not too bad, and not too bad is somehow $1,200 plus flights. Your brain isn't comparing you to where you came from, it's comparing you to what you're surrounded by now. Now let's zoom into a very American micro scene. Costco. You walk in for paper towels, that's the plan. Paper towels and maybe eggs. 45 minutes later, you're loading a trunk like you're preparing for the end of civilization. A 40-pack of sparkling water, a rotisserie chicken you didn't ask for, and somehow a giant jar of peanut butter that could outlive you. Costco doesn't sell products, it sells the fantasy of being the kind of adult who has their life stocked. And that fantasy is emotionally soothing. Spending isn't always about wanting the object, sometimes it's about wanting the feeling of being prepared, secure, like you're finally catching up. Your brand loves purchases that reduce uncertainty. That's why just-in-case spending is so tempting when life feels unpredictable. There's also a timing illusion that messes with you. When you make more, you often start handling more complex adult responsibilities. You're not just paying for stuff, you're paying for risk management, insurance, maintenance, healthcare copays, deductibles that feel like a scavenger hunt designed by a villain. Paying for prevention doesn't feel rewarding, it just feels like money leaving. And if you have debt, student loans, credit cards, a car payment, your extra income can feel like it evaporates before it even hits your life, because debt is future money already promised to past choices, which means your raise might technically be real, but emotionally it can feel like you're just feeding a hungry meter. Now here's the twist that usually makes people sit up. Even if your income doubles, your brain can keep the same broke feeling if your expectations and obligations double with it. The emotion doesn't respond to the size of the paycheck, it responds to the gap between what you think you need and what you think you have. That gap is the real villain. And it's not just math,
its meaning. Your brain is constantly asking, do I have enough to relax? Not enough to survive. Enough to relax, enough to stop scanning, enough to feel like you're not one surprise expense away from panic. If the answer is, I'm not sure, you will feel broke even if you're objectively okay, because uncertainty is expensive in the currency of peace. So what do you do with this, without turning your life into a joyless budget documentary? You don't need to punish yourself, you need to change what your brain measures. You start by giving your brain a clearer signal of safety. Most people check their checking balance like it's a mood ring. That number is chaotic because it's a hallway where money passes through. Instead, you want one calmer, slower moving number that represents stability. Even a small emergency buffer, money that is not scheduled to leave, changes how your nervous system behaves. It's not about being rich, it's about having breathing room. Then you reduce the feeling of being spoken for by giving your money jobs on purpose before it gets assigned by autopay. Because if money has no plan, it becomes a sponge for anxiety. And anxiety is extremely creative. It will find a reason to spend or a reason to panic, sometimes both in the same afternoon. Picture a Friday night. You're on the couch, DoorDash open, comparing a $19 burrito bowl to a $23 burrito bowl like it's a life decision. This is not just hunger, this is decision fatigue. If your money plan is vague, every small purchase becomes a mini moral trial. But if you've already decided, this is my weekly takeout money, your brain relaxes. The purchase stops being a threat. It becomes a choice you already made. And here's a big one. Recalibrate your normal on purpose. Lifestyle creep isn't solved by never enjoying your life. It's solved by choosing upgrades that genuinely improve your daily experience and resisting upgrades that only improve your image. Your brain confuses the two all the time. A comfortable mattress that fixes your sleep, real quality of life. A slightly fancier version of something you barely use because you saw someone else have it? That's social comparison wearing a trench coat. Same spending category, totally different psychological outcome. Also, name the trap when it shows up. When you feel broke after a raise, say it out loud, just to yourself. This is my baseline updating. That tiny label creates distance. It turns a panic feeling into a process you can observe. And what you can observe, you can adjust. Now for the most underrated reframe. You might feel broke because you're building stability, paying down debt, investing, taking on adult responsibilities that don't look glamorous on social media. In other words, you're spending money to reduce future pain, not to increase current sparkle. That's not being broke, that's being in transition. There's a scene that captures this perfectly. You're on a Zoom call at home, camera on, pretending you're totally fine while Slack pings like a nervous bird. In another tab, you're checking your 401k, your credit card balance, or your student loan portal, and it feels like you're watching a very slow video of your money walking away. But what's actually happening is you're buying future options, you're buying future calm. It just doesn't come with confetti. So let's land this in something you can carry. Feeling broke isn't always a financial emergency. Sometimes it's a psychological signal that your life is expensive in ways money can't fully solve. Uncertainty, comparison, obligations, the need for safety. When you understand the signal, you stop treating it like a personal failure. You don't need infinite money to feel okay. You need a smaller gap between what I think I need and what I can trust. And trust isn't built by one big paycheck. It's built by repeated proof that you can handle your life. If this hit a little too close to home, I post more of these brain explanations without the cringe, and subscribing helps you find them when you need them. Now I want to ask you something specific. What's the one expense that makes you feel broke the fastest, even if it's not that big on paper?